Hey folks, it's Ardwulf. Today we're going to take a closer look at a Traveler product from Mongoose Publishing, and that is Element Class Cruisers. Now this is an interesting package because it's got some rules stuff in it that I think a lot of players would love to have, but it's also got these blueprints or deck plans for this enormous class of ship and all its variants. So let's take a look at what we have. The box here is one of these Mongoose boxes with half a lid. I'm not a fan of that, but you know, it's Traveler, so it's something I'm willing to put up with. Let's do, as you can see, you get a lot of deck plans. These are all double-sided too. Let's set those aside for now and look at the books. There's a ribbon in this too, so let me set that up so I can actually take this out properly next time. There's actually more deck plans stuck in here. So you get 2 books and this growing stack of deck plans. So the first book that you have is this Element Cruisers book. So this is the book about this class of ship, okay? And it's a full color, 80-page book. And what these is this like class of ships, and there's 3 different ships in the class, and they're all modular. And the smallest one, I think, has 2 like modular sections that you can swap in and out these different modules. And the biggest one has 6. For those curious, by the way, the biggest of these 3 ships is the ship that is used in the Deep Night campaign that they did the Kickstarter on in 2019. I will hope to bring you some content on that eventually because I did buy into that Kickstarter, but they haven't delivered the whole thing yet as of this recording. So I like what I see, but we'll wait for the review of that material when it comes out. So there's a whole section here about what cruisers are and what they do, which is nice, but I'm not sure this is the right place to put that. I would have rather seen a book on the Imperial Navy for that. Here is a section of classes of cruisers. Here's how they buy and get rid of them. Here's a section on how they are crewed. And then now here on page 12, we get into this particular class of cruisers. With the whole history here, plus ship details. So these are the 3 classes. This, let's see here, 59,400 tons for the Amara class. The Galulk class is 39,600 tons. And the Kumakiri class is 19,080 tons, and this is the one with 2 modules. Yeah, and you can kind of see the modules here. These module 1, 2, 3, and then on the other side as well. So that's pretty much how these things work. Even the smallest one is a fairly large ship with a big spinal-mounted particle accelerator. See, 2,800 tons on the particle accelerator. The biggest of the 3 has a bigger particle accelerator. Okay, and then we have a whole section on the different pods that you can swap in and out. Now, it's not like this is done on the fly out in deep space, right? This is done at a shipyard, so it's not quite as casual to switch these in and out as it sounds like, but it makes the ship class a versatile ship class that can be used for a variety of different configurations. And therefore, I think more useful for a campaign because, you know, what if you have a specific need for a ship, a big ship in this size class? Well, you can use this series of ships kind of regardless. Just pick the size and then decide what modules you want. So in addition to the missile pod, there's a fuel pod. Fuel capacity of pods is calculated so that increasing the jump capacity of a ship by 1 parsec requires 1 pod for 25,000 tons of the overall vessel size. Okay, that's intriguing. Here's a hangar pod, a marine operations pod, a torpedo pod, an orbital assault pod. This one, orbital strike missile bays and cannon bays, plus some triple turrets. Fighter pods, forward communication pods, in case you want to make this a command control ship. A naval courier. So this is an independent ship. It's a 200-ton ship. It's It's not a starship as such in that it is not intended for independent operations, but it nevertheless has a jump drive, and it has a jump 3 drive, so that's pretty good. But I think this is intended to mate with the Element class cruiser. Here's an exploration pod, an intelligence ops pod. So interestingly, I don't remember this from the ship in the Deep Nights campaign stuff. So I'll have to check for that, because that adds another jump 3 ship in addition to the jump 2 ships that the thing's already got. There's the exploration pod. The Deep Night campaign uses some customized pods. I don't think there might be an exploration pod in there, but I don't think they use necessarily all quite the same ones. And we don't have plans of the pods, but that's taken care of, so we don't have to worry about that. So here's the 3 ships in the class here too. This is the main ship. The forward section, the spinal section, which houses the spinal mount, and the aft section, command, control, and intelligence, normally commanded from the main bridge, but there's a backup bridge as well. Discussion of the drives and power systems. Discussion of the weapon systems. This stuff, I mean, all the stuff you need is basically in these charts. This is all pretty much background. Here's the Amara class heavy armored cruiser, which gives you the command structure, which is nice actually. So you have the commander, 3 people, looks like, report directly to him. Yeah, that does appear to be the case. Engineering section, 175 engineering personnel on this thing. Technical section, gunnery section, quite a few gunners depending on the pod loadout. Marines, you always want some Marines on board. Never have enough Marines. Here's the Galulk class armored cruiser. I'm going to have to say that a lot. And the Kumakiri class armored cruiser. And here's the history of the... cool. Here's the history of the class. And then a whole section on Marines and how that works. Looks like there are 3 Marine sections. Which look like squad sections. Looks like there's a platoon. Well, I'm not going to try and take that apart right now. There's Marines. You can have Marines. Crew dispositions and internal security. Okay, that's kind of nice. Now this is kind of like if the ship is on active duty type of thing. Here's some hardware and ordnance. This is like standard issue Imperial Naval stuff. This is, of course, in the official Traveler universe, a 3rd Imperium ship, but you can, of course, adapt it with. You'd have to throw the background away, but you certainly used all the deck plans and stuff. New options for high guards: sub-command centers, orbital assault system, orbital support system, orbital bombardment weapons. So this is new weapons that are not in high guard, it looks like. The Ilrods system. The Imperial Navy's integrated long-range ordnance delivery system. This sounds like a mass driver type thing. Standard missile bus to deliver a wide variety of warheads. Okay, maybe not. Looks like it's actual missiles. All right, so 80 pages on a soft cover, perfect bound. Not my preference for binding, by the way, for soft covers, but because they tend to split. Not that I've had this problem with the Mongoose book specifically, but as a wargamer, I always find that they tend to split. Now, the more interesting book, I think, for the general Traveler referee is this guy, the Naval Campaign Sourcebook. So this is probably another 80-page book, I would think. That is incorrect. It looks like it's 64 pages. A little ad for the Great Rift in the back. What this is this lets you, it gives you the tools to run a campaign in which the characters are naval personnel. Not people who used to be in the Navy, as the standard campaign framework for Traveler would have it, but like an active duty naval campaign. I would love to see a book like this for the Scouts, actually. So there's introduction travelers. Normally the travelers would be the most important people on a naval mission, which doesn't mean they're the commanders of the ship. How to create the travelers. Do we have some expanded naval stuff here? Because it kind of smells like we're getting that. Travelers still in the service do not receive mustering out benefits. They are assumed to be D3 years into their current term. So a traveler who needs to have served 3 terms to hold their current rank. Okay, so there's like a minimum number of terms here to serve to meet those ranks. Highest, which is not the captain, it's the Master Chief Petty Officer. So here's naval campaigns, distant worlds, exploration. So interestingly, that's interesting that this is in a naval book. This is not really, that the Third Imperium's navy is not really the Starfleet, right? I won't say that they never get involved in exploration stuff, but I probably would have that handled by the scouts personally, even if the navy is assisting them, or perhaps even providing them with a ship. But we do get several different campaign types and a little bit of discussion. So we have this exploration thing. We have the military campaign where there's an actual war going on, patrol and diplomacy, which sounds boring, but I think you could make that work as a campaign. Keeping the travelers hungry. Rapid promotions can lead to an increase in the skill of the campaign far beyond what the referee can keep track of. So that's interesting. I would probably agree with that. You don't want the characters getting promoted every session. That'd feel funny. Remember how often not to use Star Trek as the template for this, because I don't think it's 100% appropriate, but it's not 100% inappropriate either. Remember how often those characters got promoted, which was once, maybe twice in the context of like the 7 seasons of the show. And I'm talking next gen here, because that never really happened at all in the original series. Ship quirks, at least until the movies, anyway. The ship and crew as characters. So there are quirks of the ship, which is a cool idea, and traits of the ship. Crew Effectiveness Index. This is something that is used in the Deep Night campaign as well. There it's kind of necessary because your whole campaign lasts like 10 in-game years. Detachment Efficiency Index, same deal. So you basically, it works exactly the same way. You have this crew efficiency index, and if the crew has to make a roll as opposed to the player characters, then you roll using this crew efficiency index, or the detachment efficiency index, whereby you can subdivide the crew into, say, the engineering department is being very efficient right now, but the flight crew are a bunch of clowns. So you can reflect that in with this detachment efficiency index. Some stuff on losses and morale. I do think that somebody who's going to run the Deep Night campaign would probably want to go through these rules, this book as well, assuming it is available. Crewing the ship. It is quite possible to create an entire crew using the standard Traveler career system, but this is a bit hardcore for most referees. So here's a quick way to do it, basically. Which sounds like a better idea. Yeah, especially, I mean, some of these ships in particular have hundreds of crew on them. So here's some, I'm going to say, somewhat lackluster illustrations of Imperial awards, commendations. The campaign, intelligence events. Okay. That's interesting. So we're talking about, so this is like, it would be an intelligence gathering mission, I think. Yeah, okay. There's campaign events. Here's campaign events. These are samples, right? I wouldn't feel compelled to use this table precisely. Okay. Supplies and stuff like that. That's cool. Here's a guidelines for missions. This is very much of a piece with the material given in the Deep Night campaign. So I am going to say that because this information is not necessarily all in the Deep Night books, that if you have bought into those, you really probably want a copy of this as well. Mission success criteria. Segment resolution. So this is kind of like an off-camera way to handle these things, right? If you're the command crew and you have sent this away team down to deal with some ambassador on the surface or something like that, this is the mechanism by which you would resolve that. So maybe they screw it up. For example, this is not a mechanism that you will use to resolve the things that the actual player characters are involved in the session, right? Combat. Is this a mass combat system? Because that's kind of what it looks like. It's totally what it looks like. Alternatives and options. The random approach. The non-player captain. Okay, so this just gives you additional campaign options, which is kind of cool. Pre-campaign considerations. Crew fatigue, which is an option. And here's an index. That's atypical for this thing. And here is a thing for the ship. Record sheets for the ships. Okay. The outline you get here is definitely for the Element class cruisers. But I guess you could adapt this sheet to whatever you want. Okay, so 2 books, both quite meaty. And then this. This meets or exceeds, I think, the number of deck plans given in the classic supplement Lightning class, Ashanti High Lightning. So how many are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 of these blueprints. Now, I'm going to fold one out because I'm not going to fold them all out. And the reason why is, so all of these Mongoose box sets, and the slipcase set too for the Pirates of Draenix campaign, have these poster maps in them. And I think they're pretty nice. However, they also are on this sort of real glossy, really crisp paper that I'm not a huge fan of. I have ripped a couple of these, just unfolding them and refolding them. So here we have this is actually a perfect fold out. This is the orbital assault pod. So what does this do? Let's see here. Number 1 is the beam. So these are beam laser turrets. Okay. Of which I think there were 12 in the orbital assault pod, as I recall. Number 8 is the power plant. So there's some power plants, some independent power plants for the pod, which is probably a good idea. Looks like a bunk room. That's barracks. Sounds like there's a gym. What's F? F is the lounge. So there's a rec center in here too. This is probably the gym. That's the bridge, the pod bridge. Of which it looks like there's 2. All right, so what do we have on the other side here? This is probably the other page, another level of the orbital. In fact, it is of the orbital assault pod. And over here we have these are clearly not beam laser turrets. So the 6 and 7 orbital strike missile bays and missile storage back here. So these are the missile bays. You can launch a lot of missiles with this thing. And the opposite side, and this is half the page, right? This is a pretty big map. So I know that some of the folks watching this channel are wargamers and some of them aren't. But this thing is almost twice the size of a standard 23 by 34, whatever it is, wargame map. They're really pretty big. Here's the torpedo pods. They look very similar to the missile pods, actually. But we have, these are not deck plans that you would, bust out the miniatures on. And I'm not sure about their real utility in the game. And folding these things up is a pain in the butt. If you've got a flat surface to do it on, it's not so bad. But if you're trying to do it holding it in the air, that's how I'd rip these things. They remind me of the old Star Trek role-playing game from FASA deck plans, actually. So you've got, there's just a huge pile of these. Here's one that I wrecked, for example. There's a rip here, and I've wrinkled this, and just from the way these things go together. And it's really I think the paper type that they're using here. I think these are printed in North America. I could be wrong about that. Mongoose is a UK company, but what's the company? Studio 2 does their distribution. They may handle the printing stuff too. Not crazy about the box set quality, just because of the goofy box and these and the paper stock on the maps. I like the maps, and I like the sector maps and stuff like that they've done as well. I'm just a little leery of the paper stock. Nevertheless, it's quite a nice box set, quite a nice package. This has been a little bit of a closer look as to what's in here. Honestly, I feel like the whole thing is kind of dependent on how much you want this naval campaign source book. It actually looks real handy, but if you are going to buy into the Deep Night exploration campaign, or have bought into it already on the Kickstarter, then you're going to get a lot of that material already. Not the naval specific stuff, but the crew management and crew mission stuff. You'll get all that in the Deep Night campaign, possibly in some abbreviated form. But on the other hand, if you have this and you bought into the Deep Night stuff and you intend to run that, then I think you probably want to have a look at these rules as well. So hopefully this has been interesting. If you have any questions or comments for me, or if there's something you specifically would like to see, please let me know in the comments. Please give the video a thumbs up if you've enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. Happy gaming.